In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a complete brand style guide from scratch that includes a logo system, color palette, typography, visual themes to help guide your social media, logo usage rules, photography direction, and also an AI image prompt framework that's going to help keep all of your images consistent and on brand. And it's going to help you produce images like this. I produced all of these images within a couple of hours using the workflow that I'm about to show you, and it's mostly using free AI tools and a couple of hours of your time. No designer, no professional photo shoot, no paid subscriptions to a stock photography website. This is something that I'm going to show you how to do within the next 3 videos. And here's the thing, producing these images isn't the hard part. The hard part is the steps that I took before opening a single image AI tool. And that's what this series is actually about. If you've ever tried an AI image generation tool and been disappointed with the results, I can bet good money that the problem wasn't the tool. It was the brief. Garbage in, garbage out. And most people skip the brief entirely. So this is part 1 of a 3-part series. Today, I'll be covering the 2 steps that make everything just work. Doing competitive research so that you can find the white space that your brand can actually own. In part 2, we'll take everything that we do today into Figma. That includes logo generation, brand assets, and also mood board. And then in part 3, I'm going to show you how I generated these images using a few different AI tools that are all free so that you can compare the difference. I'm going to use a fictional clinic called Bayside Physio as the example. It's a coastal practice in Port Melbourne, but you can really follow the same steps for any business. These steps are universally applied by branding agencies, freelance designers, and brand builders. But with how powerful these AI tools are becoming, this is something that you're now empowered to start doing yourself. And like I said, I only spent a couple of hours on these. You can imagine how much better that would be if I spent longer. So this is just the beginning, and I'll give you all the steps. If you want better results, the steps will remain exactly the same, but just the amount of time that you spend on it will lead to dramatically better results. And just one more thing before we get into it. All of the AI images that we'll create in this series should be part of a broader content mix. These aren't a replacement for real clinic photos, videos, patient user-generated content, quotes, and staff shots. These are meant to be unique branded assets that you can use to lift the overall quality of your content feed. You mix them in, and that distinction matters. We'll come back to this a little bit later, but let's get into it. Alrighty, so for step 1, and this is the one that most clinics tend to skip entirely. Before you jump straight in and start generating images, you need to define what your brand stands for and what it looks and sounds like. This is what designers call a creative brief. And it's the document that makes all other decisions downstream more consistent and faster. I'm going to use Claude for this, and more specifically this project that I've created that you can get in the link in the description. It's the content and social media creator for physiotherapists. So this is primarily for creating social media posts for blog content, but it can also be used to create AHPRA-compliant messaging and marketing material. It knows the Australian allied health context, so it means that you can produce content that's actually ready to publish. On the right here, you can see some of the things that it includes. So if I quickly open up the instructions, so you can see there's a system prompt. It explains the role of the project, goes into personality and tone, explains the importance of the AHPRA advertising rules, goes into some core skills, and then also some commands. And then it goes into a bit deeper about what you can and cannot publish. Also talks about language and output formatting and a whole bunch of other stuff in here as well. So you can see it's quite comprehensive to help create a focused and contextualized agent that's going to help you create social media content a lot faster. So you can see here, for an example, we have the AHPRA advertising guidelines. So it goes into a bit of detail. So this is specifically for physiotherapy. We can see key principles, what you can and can't say, and some examples of what's safe and unsafe to use. And then it talks about blog post content and a whole bunch of other things as well. So it's being very definitive in terms of what actually happens if there is a breach. So you can see here, fines up to $10,000 if you don't stick to the AHPRA guidelines. So that's why it's so important to keep this in mind. And this was obviously all taken from the AHPRA.gov.au website. So you can tell it's up to date and ready to be used. Alrighty, so the first thing I'm going to do is paste this prompt in, and I'll read through it quickly just so you understand what it's trying to do. So I need to build a complete brand brief for a physiotherapy clinic, use this information to create a structured brand document I'll use throughout the social media content creation, AI image generation workflow. Got the clinic name. So we see here, Bayside Physio, location Port Melbourne, Victoria. So services, general physiotherapy, sports injury, post-surgical rehabilitation, aged care, some patient segments in here. So we've got weekend warriors, active seniors, sports parents, post-surgical patients. It has a practice vibe in here as well. So warm, coastal, expert. The differentiator is the deep community roots. They sponsor local triathlon clubs and treat 3 generations of the same families. What we're asking for is a brand positioning statement of 2 sentences, brand tagline, tone of voice, 5 do's and don'ts, and visual themes, and then color direction, content pillars for social media, photography style guide, and then we're making sure that it's all AHPRA compliant. So I'm going to hit go and see what we get. Alrighty, so it's done here. I've just asked Claude to produce this as an MD file. So that's something that I forgot to include in the prompt. So if I want to make any adjustments, it's going to make it easier for me to run these iterations with Claude. So we've got Bayside Physio brand brief, the brand positioning statement. So Bayside Physio is Port Melbourne's trusted physiotherapy clinic for active families, coastal sports people, and anyone who wants to keep doing what they love. Backed by 3 generations of community care, evidence-based expertise. We treat the whole person, not just the injury, drawing on deep local roots, the kind of continuity that only a genuinely community-centered clinic can offer. So this was all taken from the prompt that I used. Obviously, if you're in a different area or if you have a different positioning statement, then your prompt would look a lot different to the one that I used. So this is something that you would need to customize based on, your brand and your context and how you want to present yourself to the public. And we can see here it's included a brand tagline. So move better, live better, Bay Life. Your local physio for life. That one seems to be generic to me. We have tone of voice. So the things that we do want are speak like a knowledgeable friend. So confident and clear without being clinical or cold. We've got acknowledge the whole person. So reference lifestyle goals and what patients want to get. We've got be warm and specific. So we're saying, your rotor cuff instead of the injury. So that's an example there. Use plain active language. So shorter sentences. So write for somebody reading on their phone between sets at the gym. And then reassure without over-promising. So got that there. And then the things that we don't want. So these appear to be the exact opposite of what I just went through. So don't use clinical jargon. Don't sound like a hospital brochure. Don't make outcome guarantees or superiority claims. Don't patronize. And don't use urgency tactics or fear-based language. So these all make sense. And as I said, it looks like they're an exact polar opposite to what I just went through before. So this is one theme. They've provided us with some words that we can use, and then also some colors that we might consider using. These all look a bit sort of bland, dated to me. So it's probably something that I will take with a grain of salt. And then we have the 5 content pillars. So I went through this briefly, but obviously we want to make sure that the content serves different purposes. So we've got number 1, educational tips. So these evidence-based injury prevention, exercise advice, things like that. So about 40% of it should be educational, 25% engagement, 20% community behind the scenes, and 15% seasonal. So once again, take all this with a grain of salt, do whatever works for you, but this is obviously Claude's suggestion, and I'm sure it's backed by lots of evidence. And then we have here photography style guide. So we have natural light only, people in motion, mid-activity, which makes sense. We're obviously targeting people who are likely very active, play lots of sport, because of the area that we're in. We're obviously recommending coastal, outdoor setting wherever possible. It really speaks to the composition of the image. 1-to-1, which is a square, which is ideal for Instagram feeds and posts. And then we have the AHPRA-compliant content angles. So it goes into a bit of detail around what we can say to remain compliant within AHPRA. So you can see here, it's providing us with some examples. So what to expect in weeks 1, 4, 8, and 12 of post-surgical rehabilitation. So these are just some of the things that, as I mentioned earlier, are embedded in that Claude project that's available in the link below. We've got some good ideas. Once again, this is something that you can iterate on with Claude. If you see something that you don't like, if you see something that you think doesn't suit your brand, then by all means, you can go back and forth with Claude, iterate on this a few different times to create something that you're happy with. Awesome. So this is the competitor research. And this is something that I know for a fact a lot of clinics miss. And the goal here isn't to copy what your competitors are doing. It's to conduct broad market and social media research to understand where the white space is. White space is essentially things that nobody else is doing. The content that you produce won't just blend in, it will genuinely stand out against all of the rest of the noise. So in this same thread, because Claude already has the context of the brand brief, I'm going to ask Claude to conduct some competitor research to help me understand the visual landscape of physiotherapy clinics in Bayside. So Claude's not going to have real-time social media data saved to its model, so it might need to use search tools to look at what other physiotherapy social media pages are doing, and it's going to do all that research quickly and then come back to us with a recommendation. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and do this research. So I've got this prompt here, so I'll read it out to you. Visual competitor research for Bayside Physio, a coastal physiotherapy clinic in Port Melbourne, Victoria. Help me analyse what other physio clinics in Bayside, Melbourne suburbs, Port Melbourne, South Melbourne, Albert Park, St Kilda, Williamstown are typically posting on Instagram and Facebook based on your knowledge of allied health social media marketing in Australia. And it's got a bunch of things here. So what are the most common visual styles? What content types are overdone or cliched? What is the visual white space that exists? The competitor's not doing? And then it's asking it to refer to the brand brief to understand some of the pillars that we need to look out for. So let's see what it does. Alrighty, so it looks like it's done here. So it's got the brand brief here. So it's provided me with a bit of a summary up front. I'm going to click and find out more. So alrighty, so Bayside Physio, visual differentiation brief. So what are they typically posting? So we have tip carousels. So this is the highest. So some of the examples are 5 signs your posture is off. And it's being very clear about this is obviously a carousel that people are sort of swiping. It's emphasized the fact that a lot of clinics are using kind of Canva style templates. So I think some of it can start to look a bit repetitive, even though Canva is a great tool for this. Some of the visual styles can look a bit repetitive over time. And it's saying here, full exercise instructions, quote graphics. So fairly generic motivational quotes over a flat branded background. We have here team introduction posts. So when we have a new member of a team, we're creating a post that introduces them and their title and maybe a fun fact. We've got here condition explainer graphics as well. An example would be what is plantar fascia, and potentially some infographics. So I have a video that I'll link below that goes through how to create infographics using Notebook LM. So that's maybe something that could also be leveraged as well to create social media posts. World Physio Day. And then it goes into a bit of detail here around the differences between posting on Instagram versus posting on Facebook. So there's a slight difference in the types of content that performs better on each platform. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got the Canva carousel with flat brand color. So that's something that every clinic is doing, and it's getting quite repetitive and boring and once again, not scroll worthy. So that's the main thing that we're trying to do with social media content, is make it obviously on brand, relevant, but of course, eye-catching, scroll worthy, and something that's going to drive action. And then it has identical seasonal health. So it looks like if you were to screenshot or repurpose another organization's images, then they would become quite repetitive over time and that wouldn't drive any engagement. And then we have here the visual white space. So this is the stuff that we really care about, the stuff that's going to help differentiate us from our competitors. So we've got real outdoor location content. So we don't see many content out there that shows the Port Melbourne foreshore, the Williamstown beach, some sort of photography that shows someone doing something in the location that we're actually in, that's personalized. That's going to resonate with people. It's going to inspire them. It's going to make them feel connected to the space, and it's going to make your content feel a lot more relevant to them. Movement over injury. I mentioned stock photography that shows people in pain. This would be the exact opposite. What does it look like when someone overcomes that pain? Then authentic community storytelling, photography of real events in your area, of real people in your community. Alrighty, so if I scroll a bit further down, so it's highlighted the differentiators that we should focus on. That's going to give us an edge over our competitors. So once again, place-based visual identity, return to life visual storytelling, and then warm expertise without any clinical authority. And it looks like these are the ones that we should focus on for when we're generating our brand images. Alrighty, I'm going to download this just so I have it on my computer, so it's saved. It'll be on a folder on my desktop and I'll be able to get to it easily if I need it. And it's also a really good habit to get into just in case you need to start a new conversation and all of this information is relevant to what you're trying to create. Awesome. So this is part 1. You've got the brand brief. If you have multiple people in your clinic who are creating these marketing content, it's really helpful to ensure that they're sipping from the same water fountain and then they have the same ideas, the same guardrails, so that they're producing things that are relatively the same. The thing about these documents as well is that these documents are very, very unlikely to change over time. This is something that I would recommend maybe revisiting maybe every year or couple of years. Like I said, with the brand brief document, that's something that you really shouldn't change at all. If you've done the investment up front and you've done some critical research that really based on who your customers are in the area that you're in, the only reason why you would ever think of changing it is if you opened up another clinic in a different location and you had different customers, different types of customers. But if it's the same area, the same clinic, the same customers that you've been treating for a while, then this is something that you should try to adhere to and try to not change very much. And the cool part about this is once you have these documents locked down, it unlocks the rest of the workflow. When it comes to creating marketing assets, creating brand assets, creating social media content, By having these two documents set in stone, it's going to make those other parts of the process so much easier and so much faster. In part 2, I'm going to take these documents and I'm going to create a full brand style guide. So I'm going to create a logo completely from scratch. I'm going to create a typography set, color palette for the rest of the images that will follow. Because once you have a workflow where you can generate consistent images that are all on brand, you can do so much with those images. You can create just general social media posts. You can create images for marketing material. You can create images for ads. You can really stretch and pull these images in many different ways to create high value content that's going to really set you apart from your competitors. So I'll pop a link in the description to the part 2 video as well, so you can follow along and have the continuity. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Please drop a like, drop a subscribe below, add any comments if you have any questions, but I'll see you in the next one. Bye.